Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Raymond James Stadium here in Tampa Bay, Florida. I am Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast, where the Raiders fall to 2-11. They fell 28-13 here at Tampa Bay today. We're going to offer you a complete recap. We got a lot to discuss. If you're looking for a silver lining in a loss, Jacksonville won, so the Raiders have the number one pick as of this moment. Obviously, that's still up in the air. There's a lot of football left, but things do look extremely gloomy for the Raiders to win another game this year. Aiden O'Connell was out for the game. He was injured. I got to tell you, it was a play where right in front of the official, he throws the ball. He took two steps that I know of. I thought he took a third, and then he gets hit and goes down, injures his knee. It did not look good. We don't have a prognosis, although Antonio Pearson, we've put the video up and the audio up, you can go listen, said it did not look good. Um, and it didn't. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend, and didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night, Express. So, but it didn't look good. And I think it sets the stage for Desmond Ridder to be your quarterback probably the rest of the year. Um, Very disappointing to see Aiden go down injured. But then to see it again the way it did, I mean, again, there were two steps that I was certain of. And I had a couple people text me saying they thought there were three steps even, and right in front of the official, no flag, makes no sense to me. But that wasn't why the Raiders lost. They started out, Tampa Bay won the toss and they took the ball. They had a plan. Adam Butler, the defensive tackle who played very well today, told me in the locker room, clearly they had a plan. They knew something they wanted to attack. They did. They came out and scored twice. Bam, bam, first two possessions. They get a 14-point lead. And then the Raiders shut them down till well into the fourth quarter. The Raiders were resilient. They responded. They kept fighting. They got back into the football game. Aiden had a terrible interception. Terrible interception. He looks one direction, which is great, goes back trying to look for another read, focuses in on a guy, and just zeroes in on him, throws the pick. Terrible interception. At this point in his career, even though he is young, was an unacceptable interception, and I believe Aiden would tell you that. However, the Raiders are still right in the ball game, 14-10, when the injury happened to Aiden, and then the game just kind of collapsed and fell apart. There were some things that were extremely good. Sincere McCormick was exceptional. Let me just give you his stats, and I don't think that they're going to match how good he was. He had 78 yards uh, and on 15 attempts, but I think he even played better than that, in my opinion. In my opinion, I think he played better than that, even than what the yards say. He is very comfortable. This is a young man. You know, you always hear about backs. The good ones are better in the fourth quarter than they were in the first quarter. And I asked him about that, and he said that that's really how he is as a player. Now, I want to talk to you real quick about him. I remember when I was in school, I won't remember the guy's name, but I had a buddy who would struggle with homework and struggle with quizzes, but every time he took tests, he would ace them. And he was a C student because he'd get A's on his exams, but struggle the rest of the year. He just was a gamer. He just literally, when the test came, he knew the information, he disseminated it. Made no sense. Made literally no sense. But it was the reality. There are some guys that just take a while to develop, maybe don't show it in practice. Maybe it's because they're with the third string. Maybe it's because they're working so much on scout team. But clearly, Sincere McCormick has been a very bright spot. Him, Brock Bowers, coming down the stretch from of this disappointing season. Brock Bowers, more accolades, more records for him today. Just real quick, Brock had 3 receptions on 5 targets, 49 yards. He was great. Michael Mayer, great to see him coming back. 7 receptions on 9 targets. He looked very, very well. But the reality is, I talked about this last week. Aiden O'Connell went out and played phenomenal last week, phenomenal, and said that the Raiders, he still has not won the job, but if he continued to play that way for the rest of the season, he would certainly make some interesting decisions for the Raiders. He did not continue that even prior to the injury. He did not do that. So even if you took the injury out of it, I think it was a disappointing performance for Aiden O'Connell. I think anyone that was possibly holding out hope that he would play the rest of the season like he did in Kansas City kind of saw that wasn't really the case. And we talked all last week. If he played like that, and the Raiders won 2 or 3 more ball games and got into a position where they couldn't get a top tier quarterback like they were last year, do they look at Travis Hunter? I think now you have to look at this as if you think there is a sure quarterback in this draft, you just have to go up and get him no matter the cost. You just have to do it. Period. Now, you may find a quarterback on another roster like Ron Wolf did Brett Favre. Maybe some guy sitting somewhere, as a backup that you are convinced is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Maybe there's a veteran free agent. Sam Darnold is a guy that'll be out there. I'm hearing rumors that Kirk Cousins will be on the trading block. And although I personally know Kirk, have a great relationship, I don't think Kirk's the answer for the Raiders. I'm not saying that. But I'm also saying I don't know what the leadership's going to be thinking. But I think clearly if you're thinking young quarterback, you that now you're in a position as things are going to look really good the way the season's panning out, that you're going to have one of those elite top picks, and it's got to be quarterback or bust. It has to be, unless you are convinced that there is not a player there uh, of that caliber. If that's the case, then you have to make a decision. Is there a player there that I'm willing to gamble on over a Travis Hunter? Those are all questions that are going to be asked. By the way, as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm leaving for Irving. I'll be at the owners' meetings all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I may even stay Friday. I'm trying to get an interview with somebody on a story I'm working on for this off season. But I'm going to be there and getting you everything from the owners' meetings. Couple things that stood out to me in this game is the Raiders are very young. We know that. They're developing. There's a lot of great youth that are playing well, young players, but they remain a football team that when they don't have good quarterback play, it's like every other team in the NFL. Okay, they've got a running back. They've got a couple of them with Zamir and Alexander behind Sincere. Okay, they've got receivers when they're not all out injured. They've got tight ends. They've got some answers on the offensive line. I think there's a couple spots that they can go make some picks and look at the offensive line, but I don't think the offensive line is horrible or horrific. So I mean, I think you can pick some guys to come in and develop, but I think this is an offense that needs a quarterback desperately. On defense, you saw the defense again. Tampa Bay exploited something, but then that defense and Patrick Graham made the adjustments and shut them down. But once Aiden went down, it was literally like the steam or the air went out of the ball. And it was just like, oh my God, here is, and I'm using their voice, where we find ourselves. It was a disappointing game for the Raiders because it was one that they could have won. But again, you lose another quarterback and you continue to struggle. It is what it is. But let's look at a couple things. There was some turnovers for the Raiders, sacks for the Raiders. Caleb Chason made a play today that Jack Jones told me in the locker room, told all of us in the locker room, if that's not on an ESPN top 10, I don't know what would be. But Caleb I mean, he just played. And even when he didn't make the play, you saw him impacting the play. So Caleb is a guy that you look at and think, okay, here's a fella that, if you bring a Malcolm Kuntz, if you're able to get him on a 1-year deal, if you bring him back, You got a Max Crosby. You got Christian Wilkins back. Adam Butler's playing unbelievable right now. Adam Butler had a very big day today. Matthew Butler, I don't even know what he'll show on the stats, because remember, with defensive tackles, they don't usually show up on the stats a lot other than, you know, sacks. But let me just look real quick. Matthew Butler. Um, okay, so he shows up as no tackles for Adam Butler, but I know for a fact, I mean, for Matthew Butler, but I know for a fact there was a terrific play on the Adam Butler sack that was Matthew Butler creating the disturbance. He created a lot of disturbance up front. I thought, again, remember with defensive tackles, if it's not really a sack, it doesn't show up as much. But I thought Matthew Butler played really good. I reserve the right to go back and watch the film, which will come later next week, and offer an opinion on that. But let's just talk about this. I thought TRE'VON played exceptional. I thought he was really good. I thought Robert Spillane was very good. Um, Cameron Richardson did some things. He's a rook. You know, he's just getting in there, getting his chances. I thought he struggled a little early. I remember one particular mistake late, but he's a rook. He's going to make those. I thought he made some really good things that stood out as well. Jack Jones, you know, he made some very good plays today. So there was defensively, I think there was a lot of things that stood out. I think it would be ignorant for anyone to try to pretend like this is a good football team, because in the National Football League, if you do not have a quarterback, you're not good. And you're not going to win. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to win in the National Football League um, without a quarterback. And the Raiders just don't have one. And that's the reality of the situation. I think you clearly have a great opportunity to bring a veteran and a rookie in and still have Aiden O'Connell under contract as a backup, who has a lot of experience, who, you know, has a chance to continue to develop. Look at Sam Darnold. Look at Baker Mayfield today. And these are guys who, you know, got a lot of chances early and then had to, you know, struggled and had to mature and grow and became who they are. But that's where the Raiders find themselves. The reality is now it's quarterback or bust. And if they don't think one of those top quarterbacks is the answer, which they may not be, I don't know. I've not spent time there. I have not talked enough to scouts and GMs to know that. So I'm not pretending to have the answers for you. I'm hoping this week at the owners' meetings to start talking to some people, trying to get some scuttle and some feedback on guys. But again, if one of those guys are it, it's got to be quarterback or bust. And if they're not it, then you have to decide, okay, are we willing to gamble picking them where we're at? Or do we drop back and look for somebody that we think is equally a gamble, but it comes cheaper, but we had the best player available? Do we go get a veteran? Is there a player that maybe hasn't played, as I mentioned, the aforementioned Brett Favre with Ron Wolf and the Falcons? This is the answers. Now, I do want to tell you this. There's been a couple of stories out there that I am working on getting you answers for. The first one is, um, and I'll, well, there are just two stories floating around the Raiders right now, nationally, from national sources, that I have reason to believe are probably not very accurate. And so please be paying attention. I hope to have an answer for you on that story no later than Tuesday. So please keep an eye out for that. But again, the total recap is 2-11. There are 4 games left. I think you would have looked at Jacksonville and thought, okay, without Trevor Lawrence, that's a win. But now you're down 2 quarterbacks. Desmond Ritter's playing, And oh, by the way, Jacksonville found a way to win today. But you got the Bolts, which is going to be a very, very difficult game. The Falcons, which is a Monday night game, and then see Falcons. Oh, and the Saints, which are not a good team, but it's on the road. So I want to talk about a couple of things here real quick. TRE'VON Chason gets this interception, which is a phenomenal play, and then turns around and there's a Aiden O'Connell JPJ problem with the handoff, and the Raiders turn it back. Those are the things where a good football team can't do that kind of stuff. Now you're still dealing with youth. You got a sophomore and a rookie exchange. It's just going to happen. But don't mean you got to like it. But what I thought was really interesting is as they come right back and Bernie forces a fumble on a sack. Trayvon Merrick, gets the turnover, recovers it. This team is fighting. Now I get some criticism, which is fine. I can deal with that because I make that point. But I think it's imperative to make the point because when you hear people say, "Oh, blow the thing up and rebuild," well, you don't rebuild, and you don't have to when you've got a bunch of fighters, scrappers, and crawlers. Now, you may look at a guy who's fighting, scrapping, crawling, and say he's not good enough. Okay, I think if you look at the Raiders quarterback situation right now, on who will be, who's potentially there next year, you got Desmond Ridder that's under contract right now for this year. You've got Gardner Minshew, who's under contract for this year, next year. You got Aiden O'Connell. I don't believe anybody would question that all those guys are fighting, scrapping, and crawling. I don't think anyone would say at this point, right now, today, you can declare them a QB1 to lead a franchise to a Super Bowl. I don't think that's the case. Doesn't mean any one of them couldn't develop and become it. It just means the reality is they need to upgrade in that position. I think there are other places that they need to upgrade as well. But this is not a team that's quit. When you've got a team of quitters, you blow it up. You just blow it up. You get rid of everybody and start over because you're not going to, if somebody will quit, you want nothing to do with them. Let me just tell you something. You recognize somebody's a quitter. I'm not permitted to use this person's name. I don't think they would mind, but I'm going to ask them. But I had an NFL general manager one time tell me if I watch a guy quitting, he's gone. Well, I'll just tell you, this is Matt Millen. I don't think Matt would mind me telling you that. I don't think he would mind. He just said, if I ever notice a guy quitting, it's done. It's gone. Can't have him on my football team. I got to have maximum effort guys, maximum effort all the time. Now, sometimes you're getting maximum effort from guys that aren't an answer, but you're still looking for our guys giving maximum effort because it tells you what they think of the coach. Maximum effort on this football team. It's just not a good football team. So I don't think it's a rebuild. I stand by that. I think it's a reload. They've got to fill some positions. They've got a ton of money in free agency. They've got to go do some things. But I don't think any Raider fan today would have watched this game and been surprised. I just don't think they would have. I think they would have thought, well, okay, that's kind of how the season is gone. Some good things happen, but some bad things happen, and it is what it is. The defense did get the first fumble recovery of the year. And that tells you how bad of a year it's been. You're 13 games in and you've only had, you had the first fumble recovery of the year. And again, I mentioned Sincere's vision, that he's a gamer, but let me just tell you, his vision, there was a play today, he's running to his right, his eyes are to the right, and you can see his eye. I mean, he just where his head is. And somebody's coming from his backside left. So there's no way he can see them. Now, I am convinced, and if you had my mother growing up, you'd know what I mean by this, that all mothers have eyes in the back of their head. They can just see things. My wife, I'll be with my son Dexter, and I won't see anything going on right in front of me, and she can be 3 rooms away with walls between us, and she sees it. I mean this with total respect for sincere. He's got that kind of vision. So he's running to his right, eyes are to his right, guy's coming from his back left, and the guy dives and sincere moves out of the way. No idea how he saw it. I forgot to ask him about it in the locker room because I was talking to him about some other things, so I apologize about that. But that young man, I'm not ready to anoint him as, the next Marcus Allen. It's too early. But he's got the stuff now. He's got the stuff. And I think you have to keep feeding him, and you got to figure out what you got in these next 4 games. If I am Antonio Pierce and I'm sitting down with Tom Telesco, we are having the conversation, feed 28. And I think you got to keep, Brock Bowers. But here's the problem now. If you go to a Desmond Ritter, you've got the reality of, there's going to probably be some problems getting the ball down the field. So you can't be too judgmental of your receivers. If you're having trouble getting them the ball, that's not on them. So, final recap. They're 2-11. They found a way to lose and stay in the hunt. Jacksonville won. All that's good for the Raiders' future. Nobody's quit. That's a good sign for the Raiders' future. A lot of young pups getting some experience, trying to become dogs. It's a good thing. And the Raiders just keep stacking losses in both in the loss column and the injury column. I have been around a long time. I've done this a long decades. I don't remember a team this decimated by injury. It's unbelievable. But it is what it is. It wouldn't be an NFL game without some terrible officiating again. I saw Aiden take 2 steps. I mentioned that to someone and they said, no, he took 3. I did not see the replay of it, but it happened right in front of the official. That's unconscionable. I would, and I, again, it's not why the Raiders lost, but I can guarantee you had that been Max Crosby, there would have been a penalty. Just the reality of the situation. I'm trying to call a spade and be fair. So there's my complete recap. I got to catch a plane to get to Irving, to Dallas. The greatest restaurant in the world is based in Texas. Excuse me, not in the world, but in the United States, is based in the Dallas area. So I'll be eating there literally every single day. Papacitos. God bless Papacitos. And bringing you great coverage from the owners' meeting. We'll have all the coverage from the Raiders headquarters with Zeke. We've got the Raiders covered front, back, forward. Again, I'm going to have a big article tomorrow coming at noon Eastern time on the Raiders quarterback situation you don't want to miss. I'm going to be writing it on the airplane, and I'm going to have a big article on Tuesday about some of these national reports about the Raiders. I'm getting some information that maybe disagrees with some of them. We'll talk on Monday and Tuesday. Of course, we'll have the podcast and all of that. So from here at Raymond James, 2-11 Raiders move on. They now head back to the desert to get ready for a Monday night matchup against the Falcons. And from all of us on the On SI team, we want to thank you for your reading, listening, watching, sharing. Thank you for being part of what we do. God bless each of you. Merry Christmas. And I hope that you're enjoying this season. Bye-bye now.